But we start off while we visit those counselling foundations with that bit of theory called configurations of self. First of all, Rory, what is configurations of self?
Well, I think it could be categorized as the many voices inside the one. Of course, we're talking about the work of Dave Mearns, a large and influential voice in the world of person-centered counselling. And configurations of self is a development of person-centered therapy. It builds on the work of John Rowan and subpersonalities, and can trace its roots really back to Michael Beltin and William James talking about the I and the me. So configurations of self is where you have different voices in you. Now, I'm not talking about psychotic voices in your head. I'm talking about emotional voices. So have a think about this if you're listening. Have you ever had a day when you have a bit of an angry voice in you, or you have a bit of a sad voice, or you have a really excited voice? Perhaps it's a birthday or a celebration. Those voices that we have form a little group of personalities, like a little tribe within our emotional system. And as such, at any given time, we can be kind of taken over by those voices. I'm sure that we've all been excited about doing something really, really exciting, and it becomes all encompassing. And sometimes in the therapy room, Ken, clients come and they have voices that are frightened voices, that are scared voices, that are voices of anger or voices of regret. And we always try to meet the client where they are. So recognizing the voice, the tone, the nonverbal communication allows us to meet the client where they are and be closer to their frame of reference.
Oh, I like it. I think that is beautifully described of what is configurations of self. And I recognize as you're speaking about those voices that you can have more than one voice speaking at a time. So you may have the excited, let's go for the excited voice. You may have the excited voice that is all excited. And like you say, it can be all encompassing. But then there might be another voice that comes in and go, come on, you mustn't get too excited about this. And you've almost got two voices. And we often see this presented in the therapy room where a client may present with something and share how they're going on, and then they may come in with another voice almost immediately saying, but you know what, I've just got to get on with it. I can't be feeling like this. I shouldn't be feeling like this. I shouldn't be wallowing in that. And you've got these two different voices. And when I picked up on this theory for the first time, which was during my studies under you, Rory, I'm glad to say, I really found it really interesting because I was unaware of it. I guess it was outside my awareness, these different voices, until I started looking. And when you look to self, you can start identifying the voices. And what's a lot of fun is giving them names and little personalities. So I've got one that I'm going to share with you now, who's a judge. And it's a judge that kind of wiggles its finger at me and tells me what I could have done, what I should have done, what I should do, how I should have handled that, how I should handle what's coming up. It's always judging. And it's, I recognize this voice when it comes up now. But what I do to kind of take the power out of it is I put a little judge's wig on it. So in the United Kingdom courts, the horsehair wigs are worn. So I put a big wig on it, and it makes it more recognizable. Because I think when the voices come, they can be out of awareness, and we're taken by that voice or that inside personality or by that part of ourselves. And we identify that is us. But by giving it a name and a personality, recognize it when it comes, we can go, aha, I see you. There you are with your big wig on it. At least we have an awareness around that. And we don't have to fully identify or submerge ourselves into believing that is the whole of us. Because it can seem like it's the whole of us at the time when it's the voice that is the loudest, Rory.
Absolutely, Ken. And you've said something quite significant there. You've said out of awareness. And those who come from the person-centered canon, the lexicon of work of people like Carl Rogers, would say, well, don't we work on the edge of awareness? And here's the thing, the work of John Rowan, the work of Dave Mearns, gets us closer to our friends in the psychoanalytical world. And when you talk about voices, of course, we've talked on the podcast about parent, adult, and child, the TA voice. Yeah. But actually, we're not far away. And it's where psychoanalytical theory and humanistic theory actually bump together. In fact, some may say slightly overlap. And that's why it's such an exciting theory, because it brings to awareness those voices in us. And I'm going to share with you a fun fact. If you want to conceptualize what this looks like, for those of you who are Trekkers who watch Star Trek, have a think about this. There's Ken. If you can't see this on the podcast, but on the video, Ken's doing his live long and prosper sign for the video.
For the Vulcan.
Yes, that's it. And if you think of the Starship Enterprise as a person boldly going where no one has gone before, in other words, moving through life, seeing and experiencing really different things as we do through the arc of our lives. And if you think of the crew as the configurations of self, so you have Commander Worf, and he's the warrior, he wants to fight everybody. And then you have Commander Riker, and he's the Romeo, and he likes to do the romance thing. And then you've got Diana Troy, she's the counselor, so she's like the wisdom. And then you've got Jean-Luc Picard, and he's the kind of person who does the thinking. And of course, you've got Commander Data, an android who is searching for humanity, a very existential position. And if you think of it like that, that actually fits very well the configurations of self. And another little fun fact, Gene Roddenberry, who was the founder of Star Trek, was in fact a humanist and was part of the human potential movement. A little fun link there to Carl Rogers. So it's configurations of self. And I'll give you a little challenge. If you want to find your configurations, get yourself a piece of paper, draw a circle on it, and then draw the voices that sometimes drive you. I identified mine many years ago. I have the thinker, the peacemaker, and one that's hidden in a room and that doesn't come out anymore, and that's the assassin. And every time I get mad with people, this person runs out, and the peacemaker and the thinker kind of bundle the assassin back to his room and lock the door again. But it's really interesting, and I think it's something that should be taught in all courses, because it gives, as Ken said, an unknown aspect to you that brings into awareness. A fantastic piece of theory.
I like that. And as you were describing those configurations of yourself that you've identified, Rory, I recognize when you're speaking about that assassin jumping out, somebody cuts you off in traffic. I bet the door of the assassin's room opens up, and then you have the thinker and the peacemaker actually, and there's the other voices, and that's the concept of we have more than one voice saying to the assassin, no, it's okay, back in your room, give it the door closing as peace is once again restored. And again, I mean, this is about, first of all, looking to ourselves and our own personal development, but also we may see this presenting in therapy. We may see our clients demonstrating the different voices within. They may show the anger if they're speaking about a certain person. And it's interesting, Rory, I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but there is some thinking on my side about speaking to the voice that is present at the time, but recognizing and acknowledging that is not the whole of the person. So I'm thinking now of working with those configurations. So you may have a person who presents and they're all gentle and soft, and then they may find an angry voice about a certain part of their life. How would you kind of deal with that? And I don't want to go into giving any advice of how people should practice, because that's not what this is about. We're here to talk about the topic and get you thinking about it. But I think that's an interesting part of this topic.
You're absolutely right. And Dave Mearns talked a lot, and there's lots of transcripts in his book about meeting clients within those configurations. And I think it speaks to relational depth, and I think it speaks to idiosyncratic empathy, where you're listening so intently, you can see the shift into that subpersonality, and that person speaks maybe from a frightened place, and you adapt yourself to speak to that frightened person, almost like you'd be speaking to a community of people, and each person would be unique within the room. And it's true to say that each person's unique within the person. So yes, we're not teaching people how to practice, but with very intense listening, you can see the shift and be able to speak directly to that subpersonality, so that that person feels heard. Even my assassin needs to feel heard, Ken.
Yes. And it goes into that Carl Rogers quote where he speaks about that acceptance of how acceptance is the most important of all. And when I truly accept myself as I am, and recognizing and accepting those different parts of self, those different configurations. And it's interesting as we kind of back out of this topic, Rory, you came into this speaking about it being maybe a development in person-centered therapy and how that's built on. We spoke about edge of awareness and out of awareness, and how within the purest of person-centered, we only stay on the boundaries of maybe that awareness. But it's interesting now when we look at transactional analysis, and if we look at transference within transactional analysis, you will speak to the transference and work with the transference, almost like we're talking here about working with the voice. And it's so interesting that when you kind of take that 3,000-foot view of all the different theories, they seem to kind of have similarities with different names, but similarities. And it's just interesting to watch how person-centered, the person-centered model has developed and grown and been built out over the years. Oh, lovely topic. Thank you for bringing it, Rory.
Well, it's a pleasure. And as I say, if you're listening out there in podcast land, have a think about your subpersonalities, write them down. And it's a great opportunity, as a final thought, it's a great opportunity to be able to strengthen the more positive personalities within you. So my thinker and my peacemaker are now incredibly strong, and my assassin spends all of his time sat in the room. He doesn't come out, which means I don't get angry very often, and which is a good thing. I can think or philosophicalize, if that's even the word. I think I've invented it this morning, my way out of situations and become more of a balanced individual. So it speaks also to personal development.
Thank you. So there it is. That is our counselling foundations, those configurations of self.